The auction hovered above the cratered surface of Viral 9, a dead moon turned into a marketplace of power. Lights from hundreds of hovering ships reflected off the metallic domes below. Alien warlords had come from dozens of systems, their voices harsh, their eyes cold, their judgments swift. Every creature on display was genetically engineered for battle, bred for strength, speed, or death-dealing instinct. Most were towering, armored, and fierce. Most were perfect, but one stood apart. It was small for a war beast, its body thin, its armor cracked, its claws chipped. Its eyes, golden and wary, tracked the crowd nervously. A low groan escaped it as someone jabbed it with a training rod. The aliens whispered to each other in clipped, sharp tones, laughing softly at the creature's weakness. Weakling, one said. Not worth a credit. Another shook its head. It will never survive even a minor skirmish. Mara Kessler pushed her way through the throng, her small human frame unnoticed among the towering aliens. 16 years old, with hair tied back and hands already calloused from work on Talvos, she had seen life harder than any auction could teach. Her world had no pity. Every day was survival, every mistake punished by hunger or injury. She had learned to see value where others saw none. Her gaze locked on the creature. Something about its trembling stance, the way it watched and waited, spoke to her. Not fear. Not weakness. Patience. Intelligence. She knelt slightly to bring herself closer to its level. The beast's head twitched toward her, ears flicking. A slow, cautious sniff. Its golden eyes widened, and for the first time, it made a low, rumbling sound, not a growl, but something like recognition. The auctioneer's voice boomed over the crowd. Next. The Viral Reaper, deemed unfit for combat, but still available. The crowd laughed. The bidding started low, hesitant. Not a single alien stepped forward. The creature's muscles twitched nervously as if it could sense it was being judged unworthy. Mara felt a lump in her throat. She had no experience in auctions, no grand wealth, nothing to impress these aliens. But she had courage. And she had instinct. She raised her hand. Not loudly, not to show off, but steady. One bid. The aliens around her hissed in amusement. A human, so fragile, so small, had dared to claim the rejected war beast. Murmurs spread. Does she know what she is doing? Why waste credits on that thing? Mara ignored them. She focused on the creature. Its head tilted slightly, eyes tracking hers. She whispered, "It's okay. I see you." For a moment, silence fell. Even the auctioneer seemed caught off guard. The golden-eyed beast shifted slightly, its heavy limbs unsure. Mara's heart pounded, but she held her ground. One more credit. Then another. The creatures around her barely registered. She ignored the alien laughter. She ignored the warnings. Finally, the hammer fell. The crowd erupted in derisive laughter. Mara had won. The creature, Ralek she decided to call it, blinked at her, head cocking curiously. No one had expected a human to claim it, let alone win. Mara swallowed hard. She knew this was only the beginning. Buying it was easy. Keeping it alive and teaching it to trust a human, that would be the challenge. The aliens started to leave, whispering about her foolishness. Mara felt the sting of doubt, but she pushed it away. Doubt was for the weak. She had no choice but to act. She stepped forward toward the holding pens where Ralek was confined, the metallic doors groaning as they opened. The air inside smelled of antiseptic and decay. The beast's muscles tensed, ready to flee or strike. Mara held out her hand slowly. Ralek took a careful step toward her. Then another. Then a small, trembling nudge against her palm. A shiver ran down Mara's spine. It was alive. It was real. It had potential. But it was untrained, untested, and the aliens had left it for dead. She tightened her grip on her courage. She had no idea what lay ahead, but she knew she could not fail, not now. A sudden alarm echoed through the auction hall. Someone had reported a disturbance, a rival bitter angry at the loss, someone who wanted to reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs. Mara froze. Ralek's ears flicked up, nostrils flaring. The air between them crackled with tension. She whispered, "Stay close. Trust me." The creature's body pressed slightly against hers, ready to respond. As they moved toward the exit, Mara realized this was not just an auction. This was a test. A warning. And the galaxy had already noticed a human girl who dared to rescue a creature everyone else had rejected. The first step of their journey had begun, and danger waited around every corner. Mara glanced at Ralek, golden eyes gleaming with unspoken understanding. She smiled slightly. Whatever came next, she would face it. Together. Mara's freighter shuddered as it left the orbit of Viral 9, the dead moon shrinking in the viewport. She kept one hand on the control panel, the other resting lightly on Ralek's flank. The creature shifted under her touch, golden eyes scanning the interior of the ship. It had been quiet since the auction, but Mara knew the calm was fragile. Ralek was untrained, and the galaxy had already begun to whisper about a human daring to claim a rejected war beast. Her fellow miners on Talvos were waiting, curious and skeptical. Most had not seen her bid at the auction, but rumors traveled fast through the interstellar colonies. Mara knew they expected her to fail. They expected Ralek to die, to lash out, or to remain useless. Mara ignored their doubts. She had learned long ago that survival required more than muscle. It required courage, patience, and cleverness. The freighter's engines hummed as she ran through the first checklists. Supplies, food rations, energy packs. Everything a war beast might need, if it was to survive under human care. Ralek shifted nervously, sniffing the metal walls and the air vents. Mara crouched beside it, speaking softly. "You're safe here. We'll get through this together." The words seemed almost unnecessary, yet the creature's ears flicked forward, and it lowered its massive head in acknowledgement. Mara felt a spark of hope. Teaching Ralek would be harder than anyone imagined. He had been bred to obey alien masters with harsh methods, not to trust a human. Mara experimented with food and touch first. She offered rations by hand, speaking gently, letting the creature sniff and taste. At first he recoiled, his body tense and rigid. But Mara waited, refusing to force him. Each day Ralek grew slightly calmer, each day he learned to recognize her voice, her touch, her presence as something safe. The miners whispered among themselves. "She's wasting her time," one said. "That beast won't live a week under her care." Another shrugged. "Maybe it's just stubborn. Nothing more." Mara did not argue. Words could not train Ralek. Only action, understanding, and courage could. She spent hours observing him, noting the subtle shifts in his muscles, the twitch of an ear, the flare of his nostrils. She adjusted her methods, mimicking alien commands, but with kindness rather than fear. Slowly the creature began to respond, not out of obedience but out of trust. The real test came sooner than expected. A scout ship from the cartel, an interstellar syndicate that dealt in war beasts, appeared on Talvos' radar. They had learned about Mara's acquisition and saw an opportunity. Ralek, the weak war horse, had value now and someone wanted it back. The freighter's alarms blared. Mara's heart raced. She had trained the creature in peace, but nothing could have prepared them for combat. Ralek's muscles tensed. He sensed the danger before Mara could. He growled low, a sound that vibrated through the metal floor. Mara ran through her options, knowing the freighter was faster than the scout ship but unarmed. The humans had never fought in open space before. She could not rely on strength alone. She had to rely on intelligence, strategy, and trust in the creature she had saved. The scout ship fired warning shots. Metal flared outside the viewport. Mara gritted her teeth. She knew retreat would be seen as weakness and failure was unacceptable, not just for her but for Ralek, who had come to rely on her. She flipped switches, redirecting energy to the engines, creating evasive maneuvers. She leaned close to Ralek, whispering, "Stay close. Trust me." The creature responded, pressing its head against her shoulder as if it understood every word. They dodged through the debris field surrounding Talvos, Ralek's instinctive reactions complementing Mara's human cunning. She anticipated the scout ship's trajectory, predicting its fire patterns and blind spots. The golden-eyed beast lunged when Mara commanded, using its strength to nudge the freighter through narrow gaps, avoiding shots that could pierce the hull. Mara marveled at the coordination. They moved as one, a human and a creature the galaxy had already written off. When the scout ship finally broke off pursuit, Mara slumped in her seat, breathing hard. Ralek nudged her as if checking she was okay. She laughed softly, a mix of relief and triumph. "You did it," she said. "We did it." For the first time she felt the depth of their bond. This creature, abandoned and rejected, was now alive and responsive because of human courage, patience, and intelligence. But Mara knew this victory was temporary. The cartel would not forget, and word of her success would spread quickly. Someone would come for Ralek again, someone who believed humans could be crushed, who believed humans could not unlock what aliens deemed impossible. She glanced at the golden eyes watching her, fierce and alert, and realized that the real challenge was only beginning. Talvos had welcomed many strange visitors, but none like Mara and Ralek. The whispers had already started, the girl who tamed the rejected war beast. Mara felt the weight of those words. She had saved him, yes, but she had also marked herself. Every day ahead would test her courage, her mind, and her heart. And if she failed, the creature she had saved could be lost forever. Mara tightened her grip on the controls and looked at Ralek. "We survived together," she said. The creature blinked, golden eyes gleaming with unspoken understanding. Mara smiled, knowing that the real reckoning was just over the horizon. The freighter's engines roared, carrying them away from the auction, but the shadows of the galaxy were already stretching toward them. Someone somewhere was watching. And they were coming. Mara barely slept that night. Talvo's dim lights hummed through the freighter, and Ralek lay beside her, muscles coiled like a spring, golden eyes scanning the shadows. The scout ship had retreated, but Mara knew the galaxy never forgot an insult. She had stolen a worthless war beast, and somewhere someone would pay to take it back. She checked the ship's systems again, going over weapons, engines, shields. They were minimal, nothing compared to a real combat vessel. She didn't have the firepower to fight, but she did have something the aliens did not: her mind. Mara had learned early that human ingenuity could turn weakness into advantage. She glanced at Ralek, who nudged her hand gently. It was a small gesture, but it gave her courage. Together they had survived the first threat. They could survive again. The next morning, the freighter's sensors picked up another signature. Multiple ships approaching, faster than anything she had seen before. Mara's stomach tightened. This was not a scout. This was a hunt. The cartel had sent mercenaries, heavily armed, confident they could take a human and a weak war beast. Mara swallowed, steadying herself. She didn't have the option to flee. Flight would end with Ralek captured, or worse. She had to fight in the only way she knew how, with her mind and her courage. Ralek rose to his feet, towering in the freighter's small hold, muscles flexing. He sniffed the air, low growls vibrating in his chest. Mara ran through her plan. The freighter was too small for a full battle, but it had narrow corridors and heavy cargo containers. She could use them as cover, creating choke points that would slow the attackers. She could anticipate the AI's firing patterns, predict the paths of their drones, and use Ralek's strength and speed to counter them. The first wave of drones struck. Metal shells darted through the viewport, weapons blazing. Mara ducked, flipping switches to open and close bulkhead doors, forcing the drones to change course. Ralek leapt, smashing through containers with his forelegs, sending debris flying, blocking some shots and creating openings. Mara guided him with her voice and hand signals, each action precise, timed, and calculated. Every second mattered. The drones adapted quickly, but Mara adapted faster. She remembered how the alien auction had trained their creatures to follow predictable patterns. The drones had the same logic: attack directly, overestimate their power, assume weakness. Mara exploited it. She directed Ralek into a feint, pretending to retreat, luring the drones into a narrow corridor. At the last moment, he twisted, flinging a heavy crate into their path. Sparks and metal rained down as the first wave was shredded. The freighter shook violently, alarms blaring. Mara's hands were raw from gripping controls, her mind racing, every muscle tense. Ralek let out a triumphant roar, but there was no time to celebrate. The mercenary ships had not finished. They were regrouping, preparing a coordinated strike. Mara's mind raced. She could not rely on luck. She had to predict, outthink, and outmaneuver them. She studied the approaching vessels, noting their formation. Using the freighter's engines and Ralek's power, she devised a daring plan. She would use the gravity field of a nearby asteroid belt to hide their movement, then ambush the mercenaries in close quarters. Ralek seemed to understand. His eyes followed her every gesture, every subtle shift of weight. Trust had grown between them, but it would be tested like never before. As they entered the asteroid belt, Mara held her breath. The ships followed, thinking her cornered. She guided Ralek to leap through tight spaces, smashing debris into their path. The mercenaries were forced into chaos, their formation broken. Mara's hands moved faster than thought, opening and closing bulkheads, redirecting power to engines, calculating angles, predicting impacts. Ralek responded perfectly, his body moving in sync with her commands, a lethal combination of human intelligence and alien strength. One of the ships fired a missile. Mara's heart leapt into her throat. She ducked and shouted for Ralek to push the freighter aside. He slammed into the control deck, shifting the vessel's trajectory just enough. The missile struck a floating rock, exploding in a shower of sparks. Mara's hands shook, adrenaline coursing through her. She looked at Ralek. The golden eyes met hers. They had survived. But the victory felt fragile. The mercenaries were retreating, but they would return. Mara knew that. She also knew that without her courage and intelligence, Ralek's strength would mean nothing. He was not a weapon without her. And she was not humanly invincible without him. Together they were a force the galaxy had never expected. As they emerged from the asteroid belt, Mara wiped sweat from her brow. Her stomach ached from tension. Her fingers were bruised from holding controls. But she felt alive in a way the human colonies rarely allowed. Alive because she had faced impossible odds and survived. She turned to Ralek and whispered, "This is only the beginning. We have much to prove." Ralek's ears flicked forward, a low rumbling growl rolling from his chest, almost like a purr. Mara smiled, heart swelling with pride and hope. They had faced the first true test together and they had won. But she could feel it, a shadow moving across the stars, watching, waiting. The real challenge had not yet arrived. Somewhere in the galaxy, the humans' courage and the strength of the weak war beast had begun to make enemies. And those enemies would not stop until Mara and Ralek were broken. The reckoning was coming. The freighter shuddered as Mara and Ralek approached the arena of the Interstellar Challenge, a colossal floating platform built above a swirling gas giant. Hundreds of ships circled like vultures, transmitting live feeds to the entire sector. The alien warlords had issued their ultimatum. Mara would face the champion of the auction, a genetically perfect war beast bred for one purpose: destruction. Failure meant death. Success meant proving that a human could achieve the impossible. Mara's stomach twisted, but she held her head high. She glanced at Ralek, muscles coiled, golden eyes steady, matching her determination. "We've come this far," she whispered. "We survive. We fight. We win." Ralek rumbled low, almost as if he understood every word. Their bond had grown beyond fear or trust. It was instinct, coordination, and courage, a human mind paired with alien power. The arena doors opened, revealing the champion. It was a terrifying sight, a hulking predator taller than Ralek, with glistening armored plates, serrated claws, and eyes that burned with a predator's confidence. The crowd erupted in cheers and laughter, certain of the outcome. The alien warlords leaned forward, eager to see the human girl and her weak war beast destroyed. Mara's pulse raced, but she did not flinch. The champion charged immediately, a blur of motion and lethal intent. Ralek mirrored Mara's tension, his limbs ready, his tail bracing against the arena floor. Mara had no illusions. Strength alone could not win this fight. She had to rely on what humans excelled at: ingenuity, quick thinking, and adaptability. She had studied the champion from the freighter's sensors, noting its predictable patterns. Overconfidence in its strength, reliance on direct attacks, inability to handle unexpected maneuvers in confined spaces. Mara took a deep breath. "Follow my lead," she said softly. Ralek moved forward, not recklessly but carefully, testing the champion's reaction. The first strike came, claws slashing through the air. Ralek dodged with precision, guided by Mara's subtle commands. He countered with a sweeping leg strike, forcing the champion back slightly. The crowd gasped. Humans had never shown this level of control over an alien war beast in direct combat. The fight escalated quickly. The champion struck with crushing force, sending shockwaves across the arena. Mara ducked low, twisting Ralek at the perfect angle to absorb the blow and redirect it into a container that slammed into the champion. Sparks flew. Mara's mind raced, calculating every move, predicting every attack. Ralek responded instantly, muscles contracting and releasing with perfect timing. Together they were faster, smarter, and more adaptable than the champion could ever anticipate. The alien crowd murmured in disbelief. The warlord's confident sneers faltered. Humans were not supposed to defeat perfection. Yet Mara's courage, her willingness to risk everything, and Ralek's obedience born of trust and respect were rewriting the rules. Every movement was a combination of human ingenuity and alien power, a synergy the galaxy had never seen. Mara noticed the champion overcommitting to a direct strike. Her heart leapt. She seized the moment. "Now, Ralek," she shouted. The creature leapt with precision, flipping over the champion's head. Using the arena's energy barriers as leverage, Ralek slammed down behind the champion, toppling it. The perfect beast struggled, caught off guard, its momentum used against it. Mara had anticipated every motion, exploiting the weaknesses the aliens had bred for in their arrogance. The crowd was silent. Even the warlords seemed frozen in disbelief. Mara pressed the advantage, guiding Ralek through a series of feints and counterattacks that left the champion unable to predict their moves. She could feel her own pulse in time with Ralek's heartbeat. They were one. The human mind and alien body, working in tandem, turning fear into courage, weakness into strategy. Finally, Mara executed the last maneuver. She directed Ralek to leap onto a raised platform, pulling the champion into a trap of narrow energy barriers. The perfect war beast struggled, but there was no escape. Mara watched, chest pounding, as Ralek pinned it down without lethal force. The roar of the champion was met with silence. The human girl had won. The crowd erupted, first in shock then in awe. Mara could feel the electricity in the air, the disbelief turning into respect. The alien warlords whispered to one another, astonished. Humans had defied their expectations. A human girl with nothing but courage, intelligence, and a bond of trust had defeated a creature bred for absolute supremacy. Ralek lowered his head beside Mara, exhausted but victorious. She reached out, running her hand along his neck. "We did it," she whispered. "They underestimated us. They never believed in humans." The creature's golden eyes gleamed, acknowledging her words. Mara felt a surge of pride and relief. They had faced the impossible and prevailed, not through brute force alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and heart. The victory would echo across the sector. Humans could no longer be dismissed. Mara and Ralek had not only survived, they had rewritten what the galaxy believed possible. And somewhere deep in the shadows, Mara knew that new challenges would come. But for now they had triumphed. They had shown the galaxy that human determination, combined with trust and ingenuity, could overcome even the greatest odds. As Mara stood atop the platform, looking out at the stunned crowd, she felt a surge of hope. This was only the beginning. Humans could rise. Humans could conquer. And with courage, intelligence, and heart, nothing in the galaxy would ever truly be impossible again. The arena lights dimmed, leaving Mara and Ralek standing in the center, golden dust sparkling in the aftermath of their victory. The crowd had dispersed, leaving only whispers echoing through the vast platform. Mara's chest heaved, muscles aching, but her mind was clear. She had done what no one believed possible. She had taken a creature the galaxy had deemed worthless and shown that courage, intelligence, and trust could turn the impossible into triumph. Ralek lowered his massive head, nudging Mara gently. She smiled and patted his neck, feeling the warmth of his trust. For weeks they had trained together, fought together, and survived together. The bond they had forged went beyond fear or obedience. It was respect, understanding, and shared determination. Mara had saved him, yes, but in return he had made her braver than she had ever imagined. The alien warlords returned, circling the platform in their ships, their voices crackling through the arena's comm system. Mara braced herself, expecting anger, ridicule, or threats. But the tone was different, hesitation, even awe. "This human," one of the warlords murmured, "she has done what none could. She has taught the weak to surpass the strong." Others nodded, slowly, their pride wounded, their expectations shattered. Mara felt a thrill of vindication, but she kept her expression calm. Pride was dangerous in this world. Humility would keep them alive. Word spread quickly. Across the sector, news feeds carried images and holograms of Mara and Ralek in the arena. Humans and aliens alike stopped to watch a 16-year-old girl and her weak war beast defy the odds. Colonies whispered about her courage. Mining towns, freighter crews, even warlords began to question the assumptions they had long held about humans. They were not fragile. They were not weak. They were unpredictable, clever, and capable of heroism that could bend the rules of the galaxy itself. Back on Talvos, the human colonies welcomed Mara as both a hero and a symbol of what humans could achieve. Children looked at her with wide eyes, hoping to emulate her courage. Adults who had long doubted themselves felt a spark of pride. Mara knew that her actions had done more than save a creature. They had changed the way humans were seen. Strength was not just in genes or armor, it was in heart, mind, and will. Ralek had changed too. Once timid and broken, he now moved with confidence, muscles flexing under golden light, eyes alert to danger but calm. Mara watched him, realizing that the galaxy had never seen such a combination, human ingenuity and courage fused with the raw power of a war beast. Together they had created something new, something neither humans nor aliens could ignore. But the victory brought responsibility. Mara understood that every step forward would be watched, every move analyzed by enemies who feared the possibility of humans surpassing them. The cartel, humiliated by their failure, would seek revenge. Warlords who had underestimated her might send forces to challenge her. Mara could not rest, but she had learned the greatest lesson. Fear alone did not win battles. Courage did. Cleverness did. And the determination to protect those you believed in above all else did more than any weapon could. As the sun rose over Talvos mining domes, Mara stood on the observation deck, Ralek by her side. The freighter had returned, repaired and ready for the next challenge. Mara's gaze swept the horizon, thinking of all the colonies, all the dangers, all the people who now depended on her courage and example. She did not feel fear. She felt resolve. She had survived the impossible, and now she would face whatever came next with the same heart that had saved a weak war beast from neglect. The bond between human and creature had grown into a legend. Mara and Ralek became symbols, not just of victory but of hope. The galaxy began to understand something they had never realized. Humanity was not defined by size or strength alone, but by intelligence, bravery, and the willingness to act when no one else would. Mara had taken a rejected creature and transformed it. Now she had transformed the perception of all humans. As Ralek nudged her hand again, Mara whispered, "We'll keep going. Together." She looked out at the stars, imagining the worlds that had once dismissed humans as weak. Now they would watch and they would learn. Mara felt the weight of what they had accomplished but also the freedom it gave her. No longer constrained by fear or expectation, she could challenge the galaxy, fight impossible odds and protect what she loved. And the galaxy, for the first time, understood that human courage was not a fluke. It was a force of nature, a spark that could ignite change, and nothing, not the perfect war beasts, not the alien warlords, not the cruelest dangers of the void, could extinguish it. Mara smiled, and Ralek's golden eyes glimmered beside her, reflecting the endless possibilities of what humans could do when they refused to surrender to fear. The shadows of the stars stretched on, but Mara was ready. Humans could rise. Humans could win. And together, she and Ralek would show the galaxy that even what was rejected could become unstoppable. The future was theirs and nothing could stop it.